Hi guys, Shawn here from digiDirect. So today we're going to be taking a look at the highly anticipated brand new Olympus PEN F camera. So if you've been around for a while, you may be thinking, PEN F, that sounds familiar. Well, you'd be correct because the PEN F was actually originally released in 1963. It was a film camera, obviously, that was very popular, especially among photojournalists. Olympus sold millions of units of this camera. And so this modern PEN F is a spiritual redesign of that camera. Obviously it's a digital camera, but they've taken the look and the feel of the original and put that into this current iteration of it. And you can really see that it's just a very classy looking camera, definitely kind of retro, old school, very cool design. I would go as far as saying that I think that this is the nicest looking camera that I've ever seen. I just really love the design on this. It's a very solid build. Feels very solid in the hand. Just the design on this is off the charts. Really, really nice camera. But straying away from the physical design for a minute, the PEN F is, like all other current Olympus cameras, a micro four thirds sized camera. So it has a micro four thirds sensor in it, which is just a really nice size sensor. It's a really good mix of large sensor for high quality photos and videos, but small enough that the lenses can be really, really compact. When you compare Olympus lenses to, say, Canon, Nikon, or even Sony lenses, Olympus lenses can be a lot smaller for the most part, and that comes down to that because of the sensor sizing here. So, you know, you've got nice compact camera bodies, you've also got really nice compact lenses, which is great for cameras like this. On this one right now I have the Olympus 17mm, which is a great little street setup. So the micro four thirds format, as we've seen in Olympus so far, also on the PEN F. However, one update that is on the PEN F is that the sensor is actually the highest resolution micro four thirds sensor that Olympus has yet put out. So previously their EM1, EM5 Mark II, EM10 Mark II, those are all 16 megapixel sensors. The PEN F is the first micro four thirds camera from Olympus that has a 20 megapixel sensor. So a high resolution sensor in the PEN F than we've seen before from Olympus. Now this comes into play in a couple areas. In particular in the high res mode. So that's a mode that was first introduced on the EM5 Mark II. It's also made its way into the PEN F. Essentially it's a mode where the camera has to be placed on a tripod or other stationary point, and it takes 8 exposures and blends them all together and gives you one final image that is a very high resolution. So that's on the EM5 Mark II, it's also on the PEN F, but since the PEN F has a higher resolution sensor than the EM5 Mark II, this high res mode allows us to get even higher resolution photos out of it. So on the PEN F, using the high res mode, you can get up to a 50 megapixel JPEG or an 80 megapixel RAW file. So these are just really, really huge files, very, very high resolution. That's higher resolution than you'll see in something like a Nikon D810 or a Canon 5DSR, which is a 50 megapixel sensor. So if you're shooting RAW and you're getting 80 megapixels, you can even get higher on the PEN F than on those cameras, with the caveat that it has to be placed on a tripod. And any movement in there will give you some issues. But if you're a landscape photographer, you're doing big prints and so on, you don't have a lot of movement in your subjects, that's a really, really useful feature to get really high resolution photos. So that's really great to have. Now also on the PEN F, we do see the 5-axis image stabilization that we're used to seeing on Olympus cameras now, which is just a really, really good system. It's in-body image stabilization. So whichever lens you put on here, it doesn't matter, it's going to be image stabilized. Even if you're adapting an old manual focus lens onto the camera, you're still going to have that image stabilization. And that goes a long way to eliminating handshake from using the camera. So for stills, that means you can shoot at lower shutter speeds, which will let you shoot in lower light. For video, it means you can handhold the camera a lot more because it eliminates that handshake and gives you nice, smooth motions. And the Olympus image stabilization system is definitely the best in the industry, so it's really nice to see that make its way onto the PEN F. So let's take a bit of a closer look at the physical layout of the PEN F. So on the top here is where we're going to have most of our physical control dials. We've got the on-off switch at the left, hot shoe in the middle. Just on the right of that, we have the mode dial, which should look familiar, although on the PEN F, they have included 4 customizable settings, so C1 through C4. And what that means is if you have a certain look or shooting setup that you frequently use, you can save it to one of those settings and instantly recall it without having to recreate it in the menus every time. So you've got 4 options for that, which is great. You've got a control dial on the top, and your second control dial just on the back here for your thumb. And on the right, you've got your exposure compensation dial, and then the top right has the movie record button. Now looking at the back, we'll see most of the controls that we're used to seeing, although we can note that Olympus has also slipped in a couple customizable function buttons here. We do have a fully articulating screen here, so that can turn all the way out and all the way around, which previously we've only seen on the EM5 Mark II from Olympus. And lastly, as a first from the in the pen lineup at least, we've got a viewfinder. So that's a 2.3 million dot viewfinder. So a very high resolution viewfinder. It's super sharp, looks very, very good. Now, 2 controls that you may not have seen before that make their way on the Pen F is first off this jog wheel that's just below the mode control dial. And on the front here is this art mode selector dial. So these 2 tie into what we're going to be seeing as some of the new creative options on the Pen F, which allow us to really adjust the looks of our photos right in camera. These are looks that will come out on JPEG photos, although not on RAW photos. Okay, so let's take a look at these art filters and what they can do. So in the default position, that's no filter, that's your standard position. I can still use this jog wheel up here, and what that's going to do is pull up highlights, shadows, or if I press info here, or midtones. So I can adjust the highlights and shadows. So for example, in the top right here, the sky is a little bright. So I'm going to adjust those highlights down if I want. I can also adjust the shadows here so we can see it. Look in the tree on the right, see how dark it is now, and I can bring it up as well. So I can make those adjustments. And then I switch to the midtones. Similarly, I can do whatever I want here to adjust the midtone brightness. So I've got my, my manual control over those parameters here just by pressing the jog wheel. Now I can then switch over to the first of the creative modes, which is just the art filter mode. So that just lets me choose different art filters, and I can switch between them. They're just preordained filters that I can switch between and scroll through. The next one is the CRT mode, which you can see this color dial comes up. Basically, this allows me to put a color cast of my choice over the photo, so I can use the top dial to scroll through the color cast. You can see I can change the look. Now I'm into purples and blues and greens. So I can give it a color cast, and then by controlling this dial, I can adjust the severity of that color cast. So if I go back to, let's say, a purple cast, you can see as I spin this, the intensity goes down. So I can bring it down to almost basically desaturated, and then or bring it up partially or fully or however much intensity I want. So the next 2 modes are perhaps the most interesting ones. The first is the selective color mode. So in this mode, we see a similar color wheel as we saw on the CRT mode, although the difference is that in this one I can adjust the saturation or vividness of the colors, and I can do that globally, where I can adjust saturation of everything. So you can see that brings the saturation up or down, or I can do that on a color by color basis. So for example, if I wanted to get rid of some of the yellows or greens in this photo, I can select yellow and I can desaturate just the yellows, or I can make them more saturated. And I can do that with each individual color. So I can basically selectively saturate and desaturate different colors, and that lets me kind of create a lot of cool looks, interesting images, and lets me be fairly creative there. Now I should mention that for each of these, I can still do those highlights and shadow midtones adjustments that I could do with the main default mode, and I can just keep toggling to go back and forth between those options. And then when I'm on highlights and shadows, press info, and then I get midtones. So I can still adjust my saturation colors and then still adjust my the highlights and shadows at the same time. So you can be very precise with the kind of look that you might want out of photos like this. So the last mode here is mono, and that's monochromatic, black and white photos. Now, I've still got this color wheel, and what does that mean here? Well, that puts a color filter over the black and white, so that'll give you a range of different effects. So again, I can control the color as well as the intensity. So the top dial controls which color, and the bottom dial controls the intensity of it. So you see as I scroll through the different colors, that affects the contrast and the look that we're seeing here. from the black and white. So it does have a pretty big effect on the photo. And there's some pretty extreme looks you can actually accomplish with this effect. Some that almost look like a UV camera, some that emulates infrared film kind of look. So a lot of cool different options here. So a lot of customization available when you're looking at these different art modes. And again, the fact that you have those C1 through C4 customizable dials on the top means that you can take your time to really find a look that you like and then save it to your customized settings. So you don't have to go and recreate it manually each time. You can have up to 4 saved to the mode dial at the top. So that's really useful. Now, if I am in the middle of some kind of crazy setting and I want to set it back to normal, in any of these modes, I just hold the OK button and it'll stick back to no filter on there. So there's a lot of other features built into the PEN F. I'm not going to touch on every single one of them, but one that I will mention is the live composite mode. We've seen this in some of the previous Olympus cameras. It does make its way into the PEN F. Basically, it's a way to shoot photos like star trails and other similar type photos very easily. The difference with the PEN F is that now live exposure, or live composite, sorry, is controllable via Wi-Fi. So you can now control that on the mobile app on your phone over Wi-Fi, which you couldn't do previously with the other cameras. So that's new on the PEN F. There's also a lot of video features obviously on the PEN F. I haven't touched on those too much yet, but it's got very similar video capabilities as the EM5 Mark II. So similar video bitrate, which I believe is 77 megabits per second, so decently high bitrate, and the inclusion of the fully articulating screen and the 5-axis image stabilization is going to go a long way to helping you get stable, good quality videos out of the PEN F. So the last thing that I'll mention is, although the PEN F does have quite a lot of features on it, there's an easy way to get yourself acquainted with all the features, and that's through the Coffee on Olympus program. Now, this is a program in Australia, so if you're in Australia, when you buy an Olympus camera, you can register for Coffee on Olympus, which is basically an Olympus rep will meet you for coffee and they'll walk you through the features of the camera. So that's a great way to easily learn all the ins and outs of your camera without having to spend a whole bunch of time trying to figure it out. You can get basically a session where they'll walk you through it all. So there you have it. That's the Olympus PEN F in a nutshell. Olympus has really knocked it out of the park with the physical design of this camera. Just really can't get over that. Still really great looking and feeling camera. But it also has the highest resolution sensor we've yet seen from Olympus, as well as that range of artistic controls that give you a lot of flexibility over your photos, as well as all the other very good Olympus features that we've seen in previous cameras, also in the PEN F here. I should also mention that it does come in 2 colors. This is the silver version. You can also get it in a version that's all black. Now, if you want to learn more about the PEN F or try it out, come into one of our stores. We have stores in the Sydney CBD, Miranda, Bondi Junction, the Melbourne CBD, and Brisbane CBD. You can also buy the PEN F on our website at www.digidirect.com.au. Take care.